Hello and welcome to another video on Dragalia month. And of course, we're talking about the best thing about it, the events. Every time an event always appears within the series, they always have some entertaining story, characters, or lore. Not to mention, every event that usually appears is also interconnected within the summoning showcase of that specific month. So it's about time I did another countdown list, and of course, it's the Unlucky 13 Best Dragalia Lost events. So here are the rules of this countdown. So let's start off with one of the few things about this rule. I'll only be adding limited events. Basically anything in the event compendium. I'll also be excluding events like the Alberian Battle Royale, Enter the Kaleidoscope, Astral Raids, and boss fights like the Agito. Also, some events I'll be putting together into one, as there are some events that are actually two-parters. And also, I'll be including crossovers. But before we start the countdown, I'll give you guys my lucky 7 honorable mentions. The Blood That Binds. A pretty interesting story arc that actually features the Alberian family, and gives a little more character development to Valix. Varys, not so much. Loyalty's Requiem. This was the first event that really introduced me to how great Dragalia Lost could be, with all the cool stuff that it'll introduce. Doomsday Getaway. It's a beach event, Danganronpa edition. A Waltz with Fate. I really like the love story in this one, it's kinda cute. I just wish they did more with Felicia and Phantom. The Miracle, Dragon Mule, and Trick or Treasure. The first holiday events that I think were really entertaining, and I feel like some of the other events never really topped them. But there were also the events that gave us Halloween summons. The Clockwork Heart. The best and last Halloween event, and also having some of the best music in Dragalia Lost. And finally, Fire Emblem Lost Heroes and Kindred Ties. The Fire Emblem's Heroes crossover was a really big surprise, the fact that they did it twice. I'll generally admit I am not the biggest fan of defense events, mostly because it's mandatory that you need at least an online friend to play with these events, and that they take so dang long if you don't know what you're doing. I should also note, don't be expecting any of the new types of events in this countdown on account of nothing could really beat a raid or a facility event. Now, onto the countdown, starting with my lucky number, 13. Back in early Dragalia, there were a lot of new characters that were introduced to the series that have yet to be used as summonable party members. These included characters like the Alberian family, Captain Leaf of the Sparrows, and the character we'll be talking about, the blacksmith Ramona, where she was introduced during a tutorial of facilities and how to actually upgrade facility types, more specifically what she specializes in, weapons. So it was kind of shame to know that early on she wasn't a summonable party member, until the long-awaited event, Flames of Reflection. Not only did we finally get Ramona as a summonable party member, but we also got her 2 sisters. Though the 2 best ones to use are the 5-star fire element users, because the sister was unfortunately a 4-star water user. But the event story actually gave us a little more detail on the character's background, as they're actually children of a well-known blacksmith, but they feel like they're not the best at what they do. Not until they're introduced to a dragon named Arctos who trains them to become better blacksmiths, specialize their weapon-making skills, so they can go up against Lazari, who, fun fact, was also an introduction to the new species in Dragalia Lost, the Rockin. This is also one of the few events to not really introduce the main characters as, well, the main characters. It was the side characters who got the limelight. Though I will admit, some of the things you get in this event are not really great. Arctos isn't what you call the best dragon to actually use in your party. But still, it gave us something the fans were really wanting. It's kind of crazy, we got a few interesting crossovers within Dragalia Lost. Fire Emblem Heroes was kind of a no-brainer considering this was a collaboration with Nintendo. We also got a couple of other crossover events that you'll see later on this list, and also Mega Man. But then again, androids later became a thing. But the first crossover to put on my list was actually Princess Connect Redive, A Voracious Visitor. This one was actually a pretty interesting crossover, as this was actually not in collaboration with other companies that Nintendo has done before in the past. This was the first crossover with a side game series, not including the adventurers that were already part of the side games universe, of titles like Grand Blue Fantasy or Rage of Bahamut. And the character you got for this event was the peckish Princess Pekarine, from the series Princess Connect Redive, which was originally a mobile game before it became an anime. But I think most people recognize it through the anime unless you're from Japan. Though this was a crossover event, there were some noteworthy things that didn't really make this one a top tier event. One, Pekarine wasn't a free adventurer. Instead, you got Forger Cleo. I mean, I ain't complaining about that, I really like Cleo. But one of the other downsides was that you didn't really have to fight a unique boss integrated within the universe of Princess Connect. You fought Kronos again. Well, technically it's not Kronos, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Instead, you can only get Pekarine through the Summon Showcase. But unlike any of the other crossover characters, Pekarine was actually a permanent summon character even after her event ended. which made me feel like an idiot after wasting so much Wormite trying to summon her. Not to mention, you also got a variant of Mitsuba, and a new dragon named Pandora. Though I'm not really familiar with Princess Connect lore, so I don't really know if she's actually part of the Princess Connect series. If she is, let me know in the comments. But I really enjoyed the event that Pecorine was a part of. I mean, her advertising had Pipple in it, which is a shame because she never really interacts with him in-game. 0 out of 10. If you see my Best Adventurers in Dragalia Lost video, you probably know that I put Annalie in my list. So it wouldn't be much of a surprise that I also put her event on this list. Dream Big Under the Big Top is honestly a very fun slice of life episode in a way. The circus comes to Alberia and it's suffering some major issues with a rival circus. Though Yun and his friends literally let them have the circus at the castle and join the troupe. Not to mention the worm prints for this are actually pretty entertaining. Seeing an image of both Ransel and Cleo in a trapeze act, I'm a little curious what made me think of what the other characters were doing within the circus, which also makes me want a Dragalia Lost anime even more. Though this was also a facility event, you didn't get really any new adventurers, you still got some pretty interesting characters to get in your summon showcase. Of course, one of my favorites design-wise, Annalie, her partner Liger, which is a dragon she tamed for circus performance, and you got the dagger-wielding Fritz. But what makes this event stand out for me the most was, honestly, it was just fun. This was like a fun, simple slice of life adventure that really didn't have any stakes. You know, like the world-ending Pragonoth, or the literal incarnate of death holding a person hostage. It was just a fun little event that had some really enjoyable moments, which makes this event, in my personal opinion, a hidden gem. Anyone remember Phantom Thief Kid? The Phantom Thief was a character in the series Detective Conan, who was a magician / jewelry thief. So what happens when Dragalia Lost makes a Phantom Thief spin-off with an opera setting? You get the Phantom Ransom, another facility event that was actually a big surprise for a lot. For starters, it gave us another variant of Karina, known as Opera Karina. The story involves our main protagonist and his friends helping an opera group after the Phantom Thief Lapis steals the lead singer, Belladonna. Karina takes Belladonna's place as the lead singer of the opera. This event had a lot of interesting set pieces, and you can obtain Lapis as a mana caster unit. To mention, the event ends with probably one of the few times there's actual animation in Dragalia Lost. And my goodness, is it beautiful. Also, is it me, or does Lapis look exactly like Belladonna? It's probably me. Here's an interesting Smash Bros. Fact for me. Hey, did you know that the menus in Smash Bros. Ultimate were inspired by Persona 5? Did you also know that Persona 5 Strikers got a crossover with Dragalia Lost? This was known as Cage Desire. And I'm not gonna lie, this event was visually awesome. Though I have yet to play Persona 5 myself, I'm gonna wait for that Steam version, but I gotta give this event credit for its creativity. The event revolves around Joker, Morgana, Panther, and newest recruit, Sophie, who, by the way, is one of the free summonable characters you can get in this event. Phantom Thieves were sent to Alberia due to the corruption of the palaces. And of all the characters who get easily corrupted by that type of power, of course it had to be Emil. And the craziest way he got this power? He found a cell phone. What kind of person has a cell phone in the fantasy series? Oh wait, yeah, Nadine also exists. This event is just so fun, and you do get a lot of cool stuff out of it. Of course, I already mentioned Sophie you get for free, but you also have a chance of summoning Morgana, Joker, Panther, and Arsene as a dragon, who I would have put on my top 10 list, but I decided to exclude crossover dragons. Heck, the fight against Emil is even pretty interesting. Though he takes on the form similar to Thanatos, you get some really cool visual flair with the fighting style, making it feel like you're playing Persona 5 when you're playing Dragalia Lost, even having the all-out attack finish. Though this is my second favorite crossover event, unfortunately what brings it down is the fact that the only way to actually get the all-out attack visual is if you have Persona 5 characters. And remember, that most of them are behind a paywall. Boy, I feel sorry for any Persona 5 fans who wasted money trying to get these guys later on in the series. What? One of my favorite things about Dragalia Lost, whether it be from the story, the events, and even the crossovers, the best thing about Dragalia Lost, in my opinion, is the music. Anything from the events, the story mode, and of course the menus, makes me feel a rhythmic resolution. Oh, by the way, this also made it on my countdown. Though summonable-wise, I'm not really crazy about any of the characters. Catherine is the embodiment of those types of characters I really don't like. Though story-wise, she's not bad. And Eugene is not a great unit. And yes, I know, he does look like Midoriya. Though Styx was actually a really cool dragon to obtain, this event makes it in my countdown thanks to the music, as the music was actually one of the major parts of the story. As this small little town is about ready to have a big festival, Eugene and Catherine fight over a baby dragon that Eugene calls Sam, and next thing you know, it starts spawning gremlins. And the only way to actually solve this situation is by Eugene and Catherine finally making amends with one another through dance. This is why I think the music is very important for this type of events. I think the music is a major part of the story, giving it more of the proper impact that it needs for the characters to finally get along. Plus, you actually really get to like the characters Eugene and Catherine through their interactions. It's a shame we don't get to see any new story elements with these characters again, as I would have loved a festival iteration of them, but if that means sacrificing Yukata, Cleo, and Cassandra, I'll make an exception. Though Loyalty's Requiem was an event that really introduced what Dragalia Lost can promise with its events, we can all agree Resplendent Refrain was an event that got more people invested in Dragalia Lost. As we all know, the early soundtrack of Dragalia Lost was made exclusively with popular Japanese singer Daoko, and to add more emphasis to the fights against the bosses, they decided to add new music this time around for the boss of Sabnok. And we all agree this is one of the best songs in Dragalia Lost. Sabnok is also no pushover a boss fight either, having attacks that can actually hit half of the map, and a really interesting story about a children opera group, giving us also some really great summons like Lucrezia, Vixel, and cute little Pia. Unfortunately, it came to the free stuff that was kind of the disappointing part for me. I don't really like Elias, like at all. And last I checked, Marishaton is considered one of the worst dragons to use. So bad, in fact, that they actually made a Halloween version that is somehow 10 times better. Though the next event prior was Dragon Yule, this was considered the better gift. If there's anything I've learned, Multiverse Theory is a royal pain, and time travel does not help with that situation. But does it lead to a very interesting story? Well, you tell me if you've played Fractured Futures. Though this summon event didn't give us much summon showcase-wise, as we only got Cassandra and Delphi, two minor characters that were a part of this event. One of the best things were the free characters this time around, as you got the character named Audric and Parallel Zodiarch, a Zodiarch from another timeline. And what's even more crazy is this is the only character helping Yuden in this story event, as a small little dragon named Kronos sends him back in time to save his sister Zethia, but in turns actually betrays him and kills the other Zethia, creating a timeline that other Zethia, aka Xena, didn't interfere with the storyline, and Yuden eventually became possessed by the other. And Kronos is his master. Though he might look a little cute, his second form is pretty terrifying as it's a giant dragon. Then his third form, Kronos Nyx, is a Dragonic Frieza with time-controlling abilities, and the only way to defeat him is with your best team. Not to mention the music he uses is the same music you use when you were fighting Zodiarch, so you know this fight means serious business. Though this wouldn't be the last time we see Kronos, it was the event that introduced us to one of the most dangerous dragons in all of Dragalia Lost. You know what's really interesting? We got two Capcom crossovers in Dragalia Lost, and one of them is the best crossover in the game. And no, it's not Mega Man. It's Monster Hunter Primal Crisis. As weird as it sounds, this crossover makes a lot of sense. Though the hunters that are sent to this world are original characters, we still got a lot of the cool Monster Hunter tropes that you could find in the game. Heck, even the characters in Dragalia Lost get Monster Hunter variants. And it's really interesting that it was Berserker, Vanessa, and Cerise. But oh my goodness, this event is really fun. And why is that? Well, you fight literal monsters. Rathalos, Dread Knight Rathalos, and the monstrous Fatalis. You know, the dragon that is literally a world destroyer. Not to mention, there are also dragons you can make a pact with standard Rathalos being a free one, and Dread Knight and Fatalis being summonable ones. And what's more fun than fighting one Rathalos? How about fighting three at the same time? This was Chaos Incarnate even for Dragalia Lost fans. I will admit, this was the event that got me into Monster Hunter. I'd still need to play Rise though. So what do you get with an angsty Yuden, an evil organization meant to destroy the world, and a kick-ass song not made by Daoko for the first time? And no, I don't mean the Agito. I'm more referring to Scars of the Syndicate. And the Syndicate are an evil organization that hide in the shadows, making corrupt technology to, destroy the world. Although with Dragalia Lost ending soon, the Syndicate story arc is never going to get a proper conclusion, unfortunately. I still think Scars of the Syndicate had some really cool story elements. First, you have the main character Aldred and his partner Andromeda, both failed Syndicate experiments, which is ironic considering that they're destroying a lot of their facilities. Some really interesting and dark storytelling, and of course another great soundtrack for Dragalia Lost to use. In fact, the same band also made the openings for Rise of the Shield Hero. One of the downsides about this event is the fact that we'll never see Dragonic Aldred playable ever. Only they had enough time for one more Syndicate event. Remember early on when I said that I'll be putting two events into one if they interconnect with one another? And one of the big examples of this was a Splash of Adventure and a Crescendo of Courage. The first, and still one of the best summer beach events. And why is that? Well, it has a lot of great stuff in it. A Splash of Adventure is a raid event that gave you Estelle, and a really cool boss fight with an octopus pirate queen named Barbary, who was kind of a reoccurring character in a lot of the beach stories. While Crescendo of Courage was technically part 2 and a facility event, trying to get a character that they introduced in part 1, Siren, to become a pop star. And yeah, it makes it at number 3 because of this event alone. This event was so popular, it actually got its own music video of Siren singing the actual songs. And you even got my favorite characters in summon showcases: Verica, Celura, Cleo, and you even get a dragon named Erasmus. Though what makes this one only at number 3 and not my number 1 spot, ironically, is its interconnection with the story. As it of course is a beach episode, and as we all know about anime beach episodes, those aren't canon. But can you blame me? I mean, nothing can really beat the top 2. When entering North Grastia, we're introduced to a new story arc within the series, the Apostles arc. The introductions of angels and demons into the world of Dragalia Lost seemed a little odd, but when we get to Faith Forsaken, boy do they turn it up to 11. When we learned from the previous stories of the Apostles arc, we learned that some people in North Grastia are actually planning on resurrecting Satan. You know, the literal incarnate of evil. But there's also a deeper reason why, and it involves a specific final boss. Though part 1 you can kind of consider a prologue, part 2 is where they literally fight Satan itself in one of the most epic fights in all of Dragalia Lost. It is a cinematic masterpiece of butt kickery. It's helped with the soundtrack and also party members you get within the story. In fact, one of the free members is a main character in Dragalia Lost, Harl. Yes, that Harl. The one guy who was working hidden in the shadows throughout the entire series, turns out was actually a prisoner in another dimension because the other one was actually working for Xenos. Because his name's not Harl, it's Loki. And no, not that Loki, unfortunately. Though this Harl I still don't trust, he becomes an ally of the Apostles, and we also get the remaining members of the Apostles playbook: Regina, Basilius, Michael, and Sandalphon. And also, Sandalphon's an angel, yet she's also a unit. Oh, and did I also mention the fight against Satan? That fight is so legendary. People on the internet wouldn't stop raving over this fight. And yet, it's at number 2. So if this is at number 2, what's my number 1 all-time favorite Dragalia Lost event? At number 1, it's the Forgotten Truths. Though Faith Forsaken is a peak Dragalia Lost event that can't be outdone, Forgotten Truths did it first, as the event begins with Zethia being sent back in time thanks to the power of Morsayati. And we learn about his origin, the creation of the Other, and the Fiends. Not only that, this was also the introduction to the new class known as Manacasters, and one of the first new Manacasters we introduced was Ilya. And if you know your Dragalia Lost lore, you may know Ilya as the founder of the Ilian Church, the first person to ever form a pact with a dragon. And that dragon is literally God Elysium. We're also introduced to her adopted mother Mine, and the otherworldly being known as Mordecai, who turns out is actually a part of Morsayati, with Morsayati being Mordecai's emotions of anger and sorrow. Not only that, you also got Primal Midgardsormr, or as he was called back then, Midgardsormr Zero, one of the most powerful wind dragons of all Dragalia, mostly thanks to his screen-clearing skill. Zethia even learns the truth behind the very first pact, and that all of it wasn't really good. And of course, the event ended with you fighting Morsayati in the most badass way possible, with an orchestral song that has 4 different phases to the fight, and if you're not equipped with some of your most powerful units, you will be utterly destroyed. Forgotten Truths is the best Dragalia Lost event, adding more lore to the story of Dragalia Lost. It's epic fight that inspired Faith Forsaken, showing what Dragalia Lost's future had in store.